Okay, so have you ever had that feeling? You're listening to English, maybe watching a movie, and you feel like you know the words, like you've studied them, you could read the sentence fine on paper,
Uh-huh.
but when someone says it fast, a native speaker, it just kind of vanishes, like it all blurs into one long sound.
Oh, absolutely. That is such a common experience. It may be one of the most common frustrations for English learners, I think.
Right.
You feel like, I know the grammar, I know the vocabulary, but then a real conversation happens at normal speed, and it just feels overwhelming. Like you're catching maybe half of it.
Exactly. And if that sounds familiar to you listening right now, seriously, you are not alone. It's a massive hurdle. And you often end up thinking, I just need to get faster, or my listening is bad.
Well, and that's where the source material we've been digging into for this deep dive gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it suggests it's actually, well, it's not really about your speed.
Yeah.
Not exactly.
What is it about then?
Yeah. It's more about understanding how spoken English actually works at natural speed. It's fundamentally different from written English, or, that super slow, careful speech you might hear in beginner lessons.
Right, right. Native speakers, we just don't talk like that. We don't say each word
Yeah.
separately. We smush things together, we connect words, change sounds, even drop sounds completely.
Exactly. There's this whole, hidden layer of sound changes and connections that you just don't see when you're reading.
And the source points out, quite rightly, I think, that learners often, spend tons of time on reading and writing, which are super important, obviously,
For sure.
but maybe haven't had as much focused practice on just hearing these specific patterns of real, everyday spoken English. They haven't trained their ears for that.
Uh-huh. It's a different skill set in many ways.
So that's our mission for this deep dive, really pulling from what the source highlights. We want to show you that you absolutely can train your ear for this stuff. It's not magic.
It's about recognizing the patterns, not just trying to hear individual words faster, because that's often not even what's happening.
Okay, so we're going to break down why English sounds so fast. We'll look at how sounds actually change when people talk naturally.
And crucially, we'll share some really powerful, actionable strategies, things the source recommends to help you start, catching more words, understanding conversations better, and feeling way more confident when you listen.
So stick with us, and by the end of this, you should have a much clearer idea about how words link together, sometimes in really surprising ways.
Yeah, and the most common sound changes, the reductions and contractions that you really need to tune into.
Plus, a smarter way to listen, kind of taking the pressure off trying to catch every single tiny word.
And we'll finish with a really practical practice method, one the source strongly suggests, that pulls all these ideas together. The goal really is to help you shift from hearing just a blur
Yeah, that overwhelming blur.
to actually recognizing predictable patterns, making spoken English feel, hopefully, a bit slower and a lot clearer.
Okay, let's dive in then. Where do we start? I guess with that core idea the source keeps coming back to. Native speakers just don't speak word by word.
That's the foundation, really. It sounds almost too simple when you say it, but it's profound for listening comprehension.
It really is. I mean, when I was looking at this material, it kind of clicked. You don't consciously think about how much you connect words in your own language until you try to learn another one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just imagine saying, I am going, the store,
Right.
like a robot.
Right. Nobody talks like that.
In real life,
Yeah.
that sentence just collapses. It flows together.
And the source really hammers this point home early on. Words connect. The end sound of one word flows right into the beginning sound of the next. And this linking, this connection, often changes the sounds themselves.
Uh-huh. That's a huge reason why picking out individual words is so tricky if you're not used to listening for it. The sounds don't stop neatly where the spaces are in writing.
They bridge the gap.
Yeah, they bridge that gap. Like, the classic example is a consonant sound at the end of a word, followed by a vowel sound at the start of the next. They almost always link up.
Okay,
Think about an apple. You don't say an apple, you say an apple.
Yeah.
The end sound moves over.
Ah, right. Or pick it up.
Perfect example. It doesn't sound like pick it up. It sounds more like picky tup.
Picky tup. Yeah, the K sound from pick links to it, and the T sound from it links to up. It becomes one smooth sound unit.
Precisely. But, the source also makes it clear that linking isn't just consonant to vowel. Sounds can blend, they can change, they can even disappear at word boundaries in lots of ways.
Okay, this is where those classic examples the source uses are so helpful. Let's take, what do you want to do? If you just read that, it's 5 distinct words, crystal clear.
Right. Written down, perfectly clear. But how does it actually sound when someone says it naturally, maybe asking a friend?
It often comes out like, What do you want to do?
Exactly. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
Look at how much changed there.
It's huge. What do you just completely collapses into what do ya? The T and what changes to more of a D sound, the do and kind of fuse and reduce.
And then want to becomes wanna. That's a massive reduction we'll talk more about later.
Yeah.
Almost unrecognizable from the spelling.
Totally. And then even the wanna flows straight into do, wanna do, it's all connected.
So that one short, simple question shows multiple things happening. Linking, sound changes, and reductions.
Wow. Okay, so it's definitely not just about talking faster. It's about these specific sound transformations.
Yes, and crucially, these transformations follow patterns. It might seem chaotic at first, but certain phrases, especially common function words, link and reduce in really predictable ways. The source gives more great examples. How about, did you eat?
Simple question, 3 words. Reading it is easy, but saying it naturally,
You'd probably hear, did you eat?
did you eat? Yeah. The dade sound at the end of did and the yi sound at the beginning of you kind of smush together, right? And make that just sound.
Exactly. Yeah. That big plus yin often creates a G'd sound in English. So did you becomes did ya. And if your brain is listening hard for did and you, but it hears did ya.
It gets confused. It's like, what was that word? It doesn't match what's in your mental dictionary based on the written form.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Your brain needs to learn that the sound did ya actually represents the words did ya.
Yeah.
Once it makes that connection, it stops sounding weird or fast.
It just sounds normal.
Yeah. Okay. Another one the source mentions, I don't know. Slow and careful, I don't know.
No, natural speed. I don't know.
I know. That one's fascinating too.
The digi in don't just completely vanishes, doesn't it? And the vowel sound in don't gets really weak, kind of like, duh.
Right. It's a big reduction. And the words link smoothly. I don't know. Very common, very fluid.
Okay, one more really key example from the source material. I am going to go. You see that written down, 5 separate words.
Slow motion. I am going to go.
Natural speed, almost always. I'm going to go.
I'm going to go. So here you have 2 things happening. First, the standard contraction I am becomes I'm. That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, most learners pick that up.
But then you have that huge reduction in linking.
Yeah.
Going to becomes gonna.
Right. Gonna,
Yep.
Another one like wanna, and then gonna links straight into go. Gonna go.
So I'm going to go 5 words, maybe 7 syllables. If you say it carefully, becomes I'm going to go, which sounds like 3 main beats, much shorter, much smoother.
This really drives home why natural English feels fast. It's not just the tempo. It's this constant linking, blending, and reducing of sounds that creates a continuous stream.
Yeah, your brain is listening for the gaps between words, the clear separations you see in writing. But in speech, those gaps are often deliberately blurred or eliminated for efficiency and flow.
Okay, so the big takeaway from this first part has to be, training your ear isn't just about learning more words. It's about learning to recognize these common linked-up phrases, these sort of sound chunks.
Exactly. You need to map the sounds you hear, like would-ya or gonna or did-ya, back to the words you know from reading, like what do you or going to or did you.
Active listening becomes about recognizing sound patterns, not just individual vocabulary items.
Once you start recognizing those patterns, they stop sounding like fast, confusing noise and start sounding like, well, just people talking.
Which leads us perfectly into the second big area the source really digs into, those common reductions and contractions. This builds right on the idea of linking. Sounds don't just connect. They often get weaker or even disappear altogether, especially in unstressed words.
This is where English speakers are, like, super efficient linguistically. If a sound isn't absolutely essential for the meaning, we have a tendency to minimize the effort involved in saying it.
Like we're always subconsciously looking for the shortest path between sounds.
Pretty much. And the source highlights some of the absolute most frequent must-know reductions you'll hear constantly in everyday English. We've already touched on a few key ones.
Okay, number 1 has to be the classic, want to, which reduces to
Wanna.
wanna. You hear this everywhere in casual speech.
Oh, yeah. The source gives the example, I want to go home. It sounds almost strange or overly formal to say, I want to go home in a relaxed setting, unless maybe you're really emphasizing the want part.
Yeah, it feels kind of clunky now that wanna is so automatic.
Okay, next big one. Going to reduces to gonna. Another absolute giant.
Example, I'm going to call you later. Again, if you're listening for the distinct sounds of going and to and you hear gonna, it throws you off until you learn that connection.
Absolutely. It's a mental mapping exercise.
Yeah.
Third one, really common, got to, as in have got to.
Ah, right. Becomes gotta.
Gotta, used all the time for obligation or necessity, like I gotta finish this report.
Or you gotta see this movie. It's amazing.
Exactly. These three, wanna, gonna, gotta, the source basically says are non-negotiable. If you want to understand everyday spoken English, you just have to know these reductions because they are incredibly frequent.
Makes sense. But it's not just those three, right? The source mentions others, too. Like the one we heard earlier. I don't know.
Right, which often reduces quite dramatically to, I don't know.
That missing two again?
Yeah, the T in don't is almost always silent in that phrase, in natural speech. And the vowel sound weakens to that sound. Dunno.
Okay, what else? How about let me?
Ah, yeah, that becomes lemmy.
Lemme, as in let me see that, or let me think about it.
Instead of the more careful, let me see that. Again, very common in informal situations.
And similar to that, give me.
Becomes gimme.
Gimme, like give me a break, or give me your keys.
Right. These last two, lemmy and gimme, are definitely more informal.
Yeah.
But you hear them constantly in movies, TV shows, casual conversation.
This is where that gap between, like, textbook English and real spoken English can feel enormous. If you only ever learned the proper forms let me or give me,
Then hearing lemmy or gimme might genuinely sound like a completely different word you've never encountered before. It can stop you in your tracks.
but the good news, again, which the source emphasizes, is that these aren't random changes. They are patterned. Once your brain learns the mapping let me equals let me equals give me and learns the contexts where they typically occur.
That confusion starts to fade. It just
Yeah.
becomes another recognizable sound pattern, part of the natural flow of the language, not just confusing noise.
So the takeaway here is that effective listening practice has to involve training your ears specifically for these common reduced forms. It's about mapping the sounds you hear back to the standard meanings you already know.
It's like you're adding a crucial decoding layer. You're learning the shortcuts native speakers use. The source really encourages listeners to actively try and spot these when listening to authentic English. Turn on a podcast, watch a YouTube clip.
And listen for the wannas and gonas and dunas.
Exactly. Make it an active hunt.
Okay, this feels like a good bridge to the third key strategy from the source material, which is honestly, I think, one of the most powerful and immediately useful tips. Focus on the stressed words, not every single word.
Yes. This is such a game changer for learners because it helps you align your listening strategy with how native speakers actually produce and perceive speech. We don't give equal importance, equal clarity, equal volume to every word in a sentence.
Right. We naturally emphasize or stress the words that carry the main meaning. These are often called content words. Things like nouns, main verbs, adjectives, adverbs, they get the spotlight.
And the other words, the little grammar words like articles, the prepositions to, for, in, conjunctions, and but, helping verbs is am, are, do, can, these function words.
They tend to get unstressed, they're quieter, faster, and often they're the words where all those reductions and linkings we just talked about happen.
Precisely. English is what linguists call a stress-timed language. This is a really key concept the source touches on. It means the rhythm of spoken English is largely determined by the stressed syllables. They occur at roughly regular intervals, like beats in music.
Okay, so the stressed words set the rhythm.
And all the little unstressed syllables and words have to get squeezed in between those main beats. This is very different from syllable-timed languages like Spanish or French, for example, where each syllable tends to take up roughly the same amount of time.
Ah, okay. So that timing difference explains why the unstressed words get rushed and reduced, to fit them in between the main beats.
That's a huge part of it, yes. The stressed words are like the load-bearing pillars of the sentence, clear and strong. The unstressed words are the connectors, often shortened and blurred, to maintain that underlying rhythm.
Got it. The source had a great example. Let's try it. Listen to this sentence and pay attention to which words really pop out where the main emphasis falls.
I was thinking about calling you yesterday.
Hear that? Thinking, calling, yesterday. Those are the words carrying the core meaning.
Yeah, they're louder, clearer, maybe slightly longer, even if you didn't quite catch the I was or the about or the you, clearly because they were unstressed and maybe reduced. You still get the main idea from those stressed content words. The action, thinking. The specific action, calling. And the time, yesterday. Your brain can fill in the gaps.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's try another one from the source. She's probably going to be late for the meeting.
Listen again for the stressed words. Probably. Late, meeting.
Right. Even with that gunner reduction in there, if you just catch those three stressed words, you understand the main point. Likelihood? Probably. The situation? Late. The event meeting. She's likely late for the meeting. The little words like she's, me, for the are much less prominent.
And this is actually how you listen in your native language.
Mm.
You just do it unconsciously. You automatically focus on the stressed information to get the gist quickly.
So the strategy here is to apply that consciously when listening to English. Stop sweating the small stuff. Don't panic if you miss an a or an of or a the.
Exactly. Train your ear to listen for the rhythm, for those stressed beats, and lock on to the big words carrying the meaning. Use context and your existing knowledge to piece the rest together.
Okay, that feels way less daunting. Instead of trying to decipher every single sound in a rapid stream, you're listening for the peaks, the emphasized words, and using them as anchors.
It shifts your whole approach from trying to do a detailed word-by-word analysis in real time, which is almost impossible at natural speed, to a more holistic, meaning-focused listening.
Right. So we've talked about linking, reductions, and focusing on stress. How do we actually practice putting all this together? How do we train our ears effectively?
Well, that brings us beautifully to the fourth, and perhaps the most practical strategy highlighted in the source, the technique called shadowing.
Shadowing. Okay, I've heard of this. It sounds intense, but apparently really effective.
It really is. The source describes it as basically mimicking or echoing a native speaker almost simultaneously. You listen to a piece of audio, and you try to repeat what they're saying right after them, trying to match everything.
Catch everything, like...
Their pronunciation, their intonation, their rhythm, their speed, and crucially for our discussion today, how they connect words and use reductions.
Okay, why is that so powerful? Why does mimicking help you understand better?
Because it forces your brain, your mouth, your ears, everything, to actively engage with the physicality of producing those sounds in a natural way. You're not just passively hearing wanna. You're trying to say wanna exactly as the speaker does right after they do.
Ah, so you feel it in your mouth. You have to make your tongue and lips do what's needed to make that reduced sound to link those words.
Exactly. It builds this incredibly strong connection between the sound you hear and the action of producing it. Your ear becomes much more attuned to recognizing these patterns because you've physically practiced making them yourself. You're internalizing the rhythm and flow.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's moving from passive reception to active production, which reinforces perception. So how do you actually do shadowing? What's the process the source recommends?
It's pretty straightforward, actually. Step one, find a short audio clip. And this is key. It needs to be authentic, natural spoken English.
Not that slow, artificial stuff.
Right. Think a short scene from a movie or TV show you like, maybe a 30-second clip from a YouTube interview, a snippet from a podcast like this one. Start small, maybe 30 seconds to a minute or two max. Something manageable you can repeat.
Okay, got my clip. What next?
Step two, just listen to it once or twice through. No transcript, no subtitles yet. Just try to get the main idea, the overall gist. Don't stress about understanding every word at this stage.
Okay, get the context.
Step three, now play the clip again. But this time, as soon as the speaker starts talking, you start talking too. You repeat what they say, trying to stay just a split second behind them, like an echo.
So not waiting for them to finish the sentence?
No. You speak almost at the same time, overlapping slightly or immediately following. Try to copy their speed, their rhythm, their ups and downs in pitch. It feels a bit like trying to sing along perfectly with a song you're hearing for the first time.
Okay, that sounds challenging.
It is at first. And step four, which is super important for tackling fast speech. As you're shadowing, consciously focus on imitating how the speaker connects their words and uses reductions. Don't try to pronounce every word clearly and separately if they don't.
So if they say wanna, I say wanna. If they link pick it up into picky up, I try to do that too.
Exactly. Copy the linked phrases, the blended sounds, the dropped sounds. Resist the urge to correct it back to the full written form. Copy the reality of what you're hearing.
Okay. I can see how that would force you to notice those features.
It definitely will feel awkward at first. You'll probably stumble, you might fall behind, you might miss words. That is totally normal and part of the process.
Don't worry about perfection.
Not at all. The goal is the active attempt to match the natural flow, the connected speech patterns. It's the effort that trains your brain and your ear.
You know, the source recommended really spending some time practicing this during our deep dive, not just talking about it. Maybe we should take some common phrases and actually walk through the shadowing process right now, give people a chance to try it with us.
I think that's an excellent idea. Theory is great, But practice is where the learning happens. Let's really dedicate some time to this. We can break down the changes in a few phrases and then guide the shadowing practice.
Okay, perfect. Let's start with a super common casual question, one the source highlights. If you said it very slowly, word by word, it would be, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend?"
Right. 5 clear words. Now, here's the much more likely fast, natural version you'd actually hear. Listen closely to the changes. Hey, what are you doing this weekend?
Hey, what are you doing this weekend? Okay, let's break that down like the source suggests we should analyze. First off, that "what are you" becomes.
What are you? That tat in what softens to a dead sound or reduces to just an huh sound, and you reduces to yeah, and it all blends together. What are you?
Okay, and then "doing."
In very common casual speech, that final G sound often gets dropped. So doing becomes doing.
Right, like walking, talking, doing.
Exactly. So you get what are ya linked smoothly into doing, and then that links right into this weekend. The whole phrase flows.
Okay, so we have the "wadaya" collapse, the dropped G in "doing," and the smooth linking between all the parts. Makes it sound much faster and less like the written version.
Definitely. All right, now for the practice. This is where you, listening at home, join in. We're going to say the natural speed version. As soon as you hear a start, you start repeating, trying to echo us immediately. Don't wait for the sentence to end. Ready.
Listen and repeat right after us, almost overlapping. "Hey, what are you doing this weekend?"
Pause for listener practice. Allow about 8-10 seconds.
Okay, how did that go? Maybe a bit tricky to keep up or get the sounds right. Totally normal. Let's try it one more time. Really focus on making that "wadaya" sound and linking it smoothly to "doing."
One more time. Shadow us. Hey, what are you doing this weekend?
Pause for listener practice. Allow about 8-10 seconds.
Good effort. Even just trying is building that connection. Okay, let's take another example from the source, maybe asking for help. Slow, careful version. Can you help me with this?
Fast, natural version. Listen for the changes. Can you help me with this?
Can you help me with this? What's the main change you hear there?
The "can you" part sounds different. It's like "can."
Exactly. The vowel sound in can often weakens when it's unstressed, becoming more like kin or ken, and you reduces to ya. So Kenya becomes kinya or can, linking right together.
Kia, right. And also "help me." Does that link too?
Yeah, very often. The P sound at the end of help is often not fully released before the M of me, so it sounds almost like one unit.
Help me.
Help me. Okay, so instead of 4 clear words, can you help me, you're hearing something more like, can you help me? And then that links to with this.
Right, the whole phrase smooths out. "Can you help me with this?"
Wet.
Okay, let's try shadowing this one. Remember, repeat immediately, matching the flow.
Listen in shadow. Can you help me with this?
Pause for listener practice. Allow about 7 to 9 seconds. Let's go again. Focus on that "Kenya" link and the "help me" link. Try to feel it in your mouth.
Shadow again. Can you help me with this?
Pause for listener practice. Allow about 7 to 9 seconds.
Excellent. Remember, it's not about perfect pronunciation at this stage. It's about getting the rhythm and the connections, feeling the flow.
Okay, third example, also from the source. Expressing surprise or maybe admitting you didn't know something. Slow version. "I didn't know that."
Now, the fast, natural version, this one has a significant reduction we talked about earlier. I don't know that.
"I don't know that. Wow, didn't know." Really collapses there, doesn't it?
It really does. Didn't often reduces to something like din or done. That din completely disappears, the vowel changes, and that done sound links right into no, and then no links to that, often with the W sound being quite subtle. Know that, know that.
So you start with 4 distinct words, "I didn't know that," and you end up with something that sounds almost like 3 syllables. I don't know that.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
This is a fantastic one for shadowing practice because it really forces you to let go of the spelling and just imitate the sound pattern.
All right, let's try it. Focus on making that "dunno" sound just like you hear it. Repeat immediately.
Listen in shadow.
"I don't know that."
Pause for listener practice. Allow about 7 and 9 seconds.
Okay, one more time on this one. Really embrace the "dunno." Make it flow.
Shadow again. I don't know that.
Pause for listener practice. Allow about 7 to 9 seconds.
Fantastic. I hope you're starting to feel how this works. The more you practice actively mimicking these compressed forms, the more normal they'll start to sound when you hear them. Your ear gets tuned in.
Let's quickly look at a couple more, just identifying the changes. Then we'll do one final shadowing round with a sentence that combines things. How about, "Is he going to be there?" Slow and clear.
Natural speed. Probably something like, is he going to be there?
Right. What happened?
Well, is here links together. The Z sound at the end of is connects to the H, or really the vowel sound in he, which often drops the H sound when unstressed. So easy, easy,
And going to becomes gonna.
exactly. So you get linking and reduction.
Yeah.
Easy gonna be there.
Gather a quick one. Tell her I'll be late.
Natural, maybe tell her I'll be late.
Tell her. Right. The all sound at the end of tell links right into her, and her often reduces to just when it's unstressed.
So tell her becomes teller. Smooth connection.
These small, consistent changes are everywhere. They really add up to create that overall effect of fast-flowing speech.
Okay, let's pull a couple of these patterns together for one final shadowing practice in this deep dive, using another sentence from the source. Listen to this at natural speed and try to spot the patterns we've discussed. What are you going to do later?
Okay, thinking back, we saw that earlier. It likely becomes,
What are ya?
right, what I, and going to.
Definitely becomes gonna.
So the full sentence, what are you going to do later, transforms into.
What are you going to do later?
What are you going to do later? Okay, this is our final challenge for you right now. We really want you to try shadowing this one. Repeat immediately after us, focusing on matching the rhythm, the speed, and especially nailing that wadaya and gonna. Give it a few tries in the pause.
Ready? Listen and shadow. What are you going to do later?
Pause for listener practice. Allow about 12-15 seconds, enough for a couple of tries.
Really good work sticking with that. That sentence combines two super common patterns, so practicing it repeatedly is incredibly helpful. Seriously, keep working on shadowing like this. Even just 5 or 10 minutes regularly can make a massive difference to your listening skills over time.
Yeah, your ears will just start to automatically pick up on these patterns. They'll anticipate them.
And as the source really emphasizes, this is a skill you build. It's not instant, it's not magic, it just takes consistent practice, and it absolutely gets easier and more natural over time.
Okay, so let's recap where we've been in this deep dive. We've really unpacked why natural spoken English often sounds so fast.
Yeah, we saw it's largely because native speakers naturally connect words together, blurring the boundaries you see in writing.
And we use tons of common reductions and contractions, things like wanna, gonna, shortening function words.
Plus, we rely heavily on sentence stress. We emphasize the key content words and tend to rush through or reduce the less important grammar words, creating that characteristic English rhythm.
These patterns, all working together, are the real reason English can sound like a rapid blur if your ear isn't tuned to them.
But the really empowering message from the source material is that you can tune your ear. By consciously learning to recognize these patterns, understanding why they happen, and actively practicing through methods like shadowing.
You can genuinely change how you experience spoken English. That overwhelming feeling can start to subside.
Exactly. The potential shift is huge. That fast blur can start resolving into shapes, into recognizable patterns. Conversations that felt like trying to drink from a fire hose can begin to sound clearer, more manageable, even slower.
Yeah, it's weird. It doesn't actually get slower, but it feels slower because you're anticipating and recognizing the patterns instead of being surprised by them.
Understanding fast English, as the source makes so clear, isn't about some innate talent or just needing a faster brain.
Yeah.
It's a learnable skill. It improves directly with the right kind of targeted practice, focusing on these specific features of connected speech.
Here's maybe a final thought to leave you with on this topic, something that builds on what we've discussed.
Yeah.
Once you really start actively listening for these things, the linked sounds, the reductions like gonna and wanna, the rhythm of stressed words, you will probably start hearing them everywhere.
Oh, totally. It's like a switch flips.
Yeah. In movies you've seen before, in songs you listen to, in every conversation you overhear, it's like you unlock this hidden layer of the language that was always operating, but you just weren't aware of it.
It really does change how you perceive spoken English. It reveals the underlying structure and logic behind what might have seemed like just fast, messy talking.
And that moment when you effortlessly catch a wadaya or a gona or a dija without even thinking about it, that feels pretty amazing. It's a real sign of progress.
Definitely. So this deep dive has been all about decoding and understanding fast, natural English by looking at what native speakers do. Looking ahead, our next deep dive, we're planning to flip the perspective.
Oh, okay. How so?
We're going to focus on how you can start using some of these same principles, understanding rhythm, stress, linking, maybe even some strategic reductions to make your own spoken English sound more natural, more fluent, and more confident.
Yes. So moving from reception to production, if you've ever felt like your English sounds a bit robotic, or maybe too much like you're reading aloud.
Uh-huh. A bit stiff or choppy.
Exactly. The next deep dive will explore how applying these natural speech patterns can help your own speaking flow better and sound, more authentic.
We'll look at practical techniques to help you incorporate more natural rhythm and stress pattern, how to link words smoothly where appropriate, and maybe even how and when to use common reductions effectively, not just to sound casual, but often to sound clearer and more connected to native listeners.
That sounds incredibly useful, so definitely tune in for that next time. But for now, the mission, based on today's source material, is clear.
Take what we've talked about and put it into action. Start today, even for just a few minutes. Find that short, authentic audio clip.
Listen first for the main idea, then listen again, specifically hunting for those connections, those reductions, those stress words. Use the transcript later if you need to confirm what you heard.
And then, the crucial step. Shadow. Hit play and speak along immediately. Focus on matching the flow, the rhythm, the links, the reductions. Don't worry about perfection, just practice the patterns. Use the slowdown feature on players if needed, then gradually speed up.
Keep training those ears. Keep practicing these methods. Understanding and eventually speaking natural, flowing English is absolutely achievable.
You really do have the tools now. The insights are there. It's about consistent practice. Keep listening actively, keep shadowing, keep noticing.
Absolutely. See you next time for the flip side, making your own speech more natural. Happy learning until then.